Hey everybody, it's Luch here again. Anyhow, I wrote something new and I'm going to read it to you. And instead of making a big speech prior to it, I'm just going to cut to the chase. So here we go. It's called Reformed, How I've Learned to Hate the Word. Huldrych Zwingli. Does the name ring a bell? How about John Calvin? I think the second name is probably a lot more familiar than the first, especially amongst those raised in churches that love to distinguish themselves with the word Reformed as part of their official brand name. Mr. Zwingli apparently was the first of a handful of guys that invented and refined the nightmarish religious framework known as Reformed theology. Zwingli decided it was time to create a blueprint for a religion that was designed to counter Roman Catholicism. I'm not sure just what the guy was thinking, but whatever it was, it did not seem to make him a better person or any more Christ-like. Zwingli happily supported the murder of anybody who disagreed with his way of thinking, particularly a group of people known as the Anabaptists. Even though Zwingli did not literally do it himself, he totally approved of drowning individuals who did not ascribe to the practice of infant baptism. Tell me now, can you imagine Jesus standing on the edge of a pond, cheering in approval as a couple of his disciples drowned somebody as a fitting punishment for choosing to be baptized as an adult as opposed to a blissfully unaware baby? Sorry, but that ain't the behavior of the Yeshua I have come to believe in. Can you believe these people? I tell you. Then came this Calvin dude. Basically, he just picked up where the last monster left off and built upon it. His book, The Institutes of the Christian Religion, was his magnum opus, for lack of a better term. In it, he perfected his TULIP explanation of the finer details of how God thinks. TULIP is an acronym for 5 fundamental dogmas that Calvin invented to keep his followers from trying to escape his iron-fisted control. By severely condensing the Bible, Calvin designed a system which essentially forces its followers to depend on ministers and pastors who have been factory trained in shepherding the naive sheep-like followers of this highly controlling and narrow-minded set of philosophies. In other words, it's just another man-made cult, and a lucrative one at that. Think of a mean and nasty composer of a musical score that is the equivalent of hot cross buns in terms of complexity. John Calvin, in his own twisted mind, thought he was the only one capable of composing such a score and did a great job convincing a lot of people this was the case. What is so sad is that there are many poor people who have been led to believe that Calvin's doctrinal version of hot cross buns was composed by God himself, and all they have to do is show up in church once a week, play it for a couple of hours, and go home. All it takes is a 5-minute conversation with one of these deceived souls to realize that you are dealing with a spiritual toddler who can barely relate to anything outside of their 5-step TULIP theology. A very sophisticated and intelligent man named Michael Servetus once stood up to John Calvin and his evil entourage. He paid for it with his life. He was burned alive at the stake for heresy because he didn't quite see eye to eye with Calvin. Imagine what's that happening in your hometown. To have a bonfire in the middle of the no-frills parking lot with a man burning to death in the center of it, shrieking in agony. This is the legacy of John Calvin and his reformed take on being a Christian. I can't help but to have noticed that certain schools and institutions that once proudly displayed signs displaying John Calvin's name have seemingly have renamed these businesses with more generic and ambiguous terms to conceal their reformed roots. These liberal reformed denominations are apparently attempting to throw John Calvin under the bus, so to speak, because they know the guy was a jerk and hope that they can escape the stigma of being associated with him. Only a few hardcore Reformed denominations still have big, ugly signs outside their hallowed houses of worship with the cursed name of John Calvin carved into it with big, bold lettering. There is only one name under heaven by which we are to be saved. That is Jesus Christ. Not John Calvin, Jesus Christ. If you like the word reformed, then maybe you should try using the word reborn in its place. After all, Jesus did say that a person needed to be born again before they could enter the kingdom of heaven. It's time to leave the womb of the old covenant and be reborn into the new and everlasting covenant. Glory be to God the Father and the Lord Jesus Christ, the one and only mediator between God and men. Okay, that's it for now. I hope you liked it. Like I say, it was just there waiting for me this morning just to jot down. So take care for now. God bless you, and we'll see you again sometime. Bye.